This is Dave Kinkade from the Monarch, and you are listening to the Dan Chan Show.
Right, so I've got David from the Monarch. How are you doing today, man? In sunny Chicago?
I'm great, man.
What's it like in Chicago at the moment?
Right now it's kind of overcast and a little bit chilly.
Is that
nice.
Usual for this time of year? Obviously, I'm English, so I'm obsessed with weather. Is that normal for this time of year?
It's very English right now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Has it been a cold winter?
Very, very normal. It's supposed to be a little warmer, but I'm okay with the cold.
Yeah, for sure. So the reason you're here is to talk about what I can only assume is a bit of a super group, the Monarch, right? It's got a bunch of guys from a bunch of bands that we all know and love. You formed back in what, 21, 22 years ago, was it? Was it 2001, 2002, something like that?
I think technically a good date would probably be 2003. It was in my mind for a while to put together my own thing. Because I've always just been envious of these bands like Metallica and even Korn and Sepultura for a good portion of their existence, that were able to have like a core lineup and have like this brotherly thing and go do what they do, Unfortunately, it never really worked out for me like that. It's always kind of been more of a one-man thing. But, again, it's me standing up to people who aren't very dedicated or interested in doing it in a form that I like to do,
Well, we'll get into the historics of it, but your first album, which was All the World's Pain, which came out in 21 years later, was it 20 odd years? 20 was it 20? Was it when that came out? 21.
2021.
2021. So what happened in all that time? Obviously, I can only assume that there was so much going on with everything else you did, and we'll get into that historics as well very shortly with everyone else's other commitments. Was that the issue, or could you not get things settled?
The majority of the material on that first album I wrote as a kid, and a lot of it just kind of sat in my mind for a long time.
Right.
And I couldn't really, I didn't have people, like I was saying, I didn't have people that were 100% into what I wanted to do. It was really hard to find musicians that were just dedicated to trying to create something of their own.
Yeah.
So I would constantly, being a drummer, I would constantly put that on the back burner to go and play for other bands. And it started with smaller bands and worked my way up to established bands.
Yeah. So can we
eventually?
Yeah, go on. Let's talk through that.
Yeah, eventually I walked away from music for a bit. The last band with a name that I was in was Soulfly. And when I decided to kind of hang it up, primarily because I wanted to start a family, and I was just kind of burnt out with touring and that whole lifestyle in general. I didn't want to play anymore. If you can't do something that you enjoy and be wholesomely satisfied from it, there's no point of playing at all for me. So I changed my life and I became a railroader, which I still do.
Right. Okay.
And eventually, like, that itch started to creep back into my life. And that's when I brought out all that material that I wrote years ago. And I sat down with a really close friend and we sort of put that album together, and we found the right people at the time to do that album with.
Yeah. So obviously, how long were you in Soulfly for?
Just shy of 2 years. We did one album.
You recorded the Enslave album, is that right?
Correct.
How was that period for you? I mean, was that a pinnacle for you for where you wanted to be? Obviously, growing up, a little metalhead, growing up a bit more, seeing these bands, obviously, being a Sepultura fan, seeing Max, and then being in his band.
Yeah.
How was that process? Before we get into the machinations of the Monarch.
Well, I think you nailed that on the head. I was a huge Sepultura fan. Like, I remember listening to Propaganda from Chaos AD for the first time. That was the song that really got me hooked.
Yeah.
And then I sort of worked my way back Beneath the Remains and Arise and that stuff. But when Soulfly initially happened, it was such a different, I wasn't a huge Roots fan to begin with. It was kind of a different sound for me. I didn't dislike it, but it just didn't hit me as hard as Chaos AD did.
Yeah.
So when Soulfly came into the scene, 96, 97, 97, 98, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a different sound that I was like, what is this? I had to, because I was a big Max fan.
Yeah.
So eventually, the funny thing is, their second drummer, Joe Nunez, is also from here. And I've known Joe for many years. He used to work at Guitar Center,
Right.
which was right up the street from my house. And I would go and we'd hang out, and we'd talk metal and play drums and stuff. And here it's funny, two ex-Soulfly drummers from Chicago. But for a drummer, I was mostly an extreme, like a death metal drummer for a long time.
Yeah.
I played in Malevolent Creation for a bit back in 2005 to 2006. There was a band called Divine Empire, which was like Malevolent Part 2 that I was in for a while too. And oddly enough, my guitar player now, Marco Martel, who also lives in Chicago in the Monarch, he was in Malevolent with me at that time.
Right.
So we moved to South Florida together. No money, nothing. Drove all our stuff there, our cats and everything, and got a little apartment together just to play death metal. And then I kind of did some other projects in between there. There was a tech band called Arsis. Not sure if you're familiar with them. They're on Nuclear Blast. It's like an extreme tech death metal kind of thing, but it has really nice tasty guitar playing. Yeah. I was in them for a while. We toured with Morbid Angel and stuff through Europe. But joining Soulfly for me, it was definitely a pinnacle, being such a huge fan at that time. It was like, and the thing was like how I did not understand what Soulfly was kind of doing in the very beginning. Eventually I got it, and I heard, because I have this sort of like library of metal in the back of my head, and you can hear certain elements to certain bands that you would change as a drummer. Mm-hmm. And I heard sort of like a missing piece in Soulfly, which was the more extreme drums.
Yeah.
So that kind of gave me my chance to kind of, I don't know, sculpt a part of the band,
Sure. I mean, let's go back to the Monarch. We'll probably dip back into Soulfly in a bit, but you bought the first album out, All the World's Pain, How was it releasing that album, and what's made you now carry it through to the new album, which is coming out on May the 3rd, called A Moment to Lose Your Breath? What made you keep that momentum going?
So the first album, like I said, was it was all just stuff that I came up with as a kid, and obviously it was close to me. It was emotionally attaching, being able to create something, from the edge of my bed, because I'm not a very good guitar player. So what I could get to come out was obviously something that I was like, okay, this sounds pretty good. Let's do something with it.
Right.
To be able 20 some years later to go and make an album of all that stuff, that was sort of where it was supposed to stop. It felt complete then, put it on the shelf, you're done with it. But then people started sending me messages, and they're like, when are we going to see this live? I'm like, well, there isn't really an idea of going live. They're like, no, you have to continue. You have, I'm not going to blow my own horn here, but it's kind of rare to find a drummer that goes and writes music and writes lyrics and comes up with art and themes and all this stuff.
It's like Lars, mate. You like Lars?
Yeah, or Charlie Benante. I found out recently. Charlie goes and writes, 95% of all that Anthrax stuff on his own.
Yeah.
So having sort of this interesting sort of sound, people wanted to hear more. So I said, okay, well, there is still more in the bank. There's a lot more riffs, because this is the thing. This is the greatest invention ever. When I hear something, I always have rhythms in my head. And when I hear something, whether it's a rhythm or a riff, I'll hum it into my
hum it. Yeah, classic. Yeah.
And I have like 1,400 hums in here. I mean, it's, and it's a little bit crazy, because I'll be walking, in the grocery store going, dun, 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 dun. But hey, it's incredible. Technology is incredible.
Of course. So let's carry on. Go on, David.
No, sorry. So, that kind of gave me the inspiration to do another album. And I started putting together all these hums with a former guitar player who was in the band. And I would play him the hum, or I would pull the guitar out and try to explain the part. And he would play it. He was sort of the middleman, but the gateway between my head and the computer. And that's how all these new songs were sort of arranged.
So, I mean, how the writing process, was it collaborative? Like, did you do everything with regards to the new album, or because obviously you pulled the guys in, and we need to talk about that as well, how you got everyone in from El Nino, et cetera, and Chris from the UK. Let's talk about how they came into the band and what they brought to the table.
Well, okay, so the writing process for this album started right after the first one was complete, pretty much, and there were a few leftover riffs from the first album that never got used. And like I said, a former guitarist who was in the band, who luckily enough lived local, we would get together a couple times a week. I would take my phone and my acoustic guitar to his house. I would show him this stuff, and we would kind of, he would be the gatekeeper, from my brain to the computer. Then I would take songs home. I would arrange them. I'd say this part needs to go twice as long. This needs to not be here, et cetera, et cetera. Eventually that guy quit the band, and I had to do it on my own. It was no big deal, because it was sort of like an awakening for me to get my shit together with Studio One and interfaces and guitars and all that stuff. So I wrote a few more songs, put those together on my couch. I had a broken leg at the time, which, sucks. You can't play drums. So I sat there with a guitar, wrote a few more songs, and kind of early on, Rizzo had started to kind of voice his opinion on my music. He was like, I think this stuff's killer, because he loves thrash. He loves good, fast stuff. He's like, I'd like to play on the next one. I'm like, perfect, because we need somebody. Yay. And he's like, well, if we're going to do it together, we should bring Tony in. And Tony's in Fear Factory and Static X, super busy. And I'm like, there's no way Tony's going to want to do this. I'm some unsigned band that, But Tony checked it out. He's like, I think it's cool. Let's do it. You, me, and Mark. So I guess everything was written really before they showed up.
Right. Okay.
Other than guitar solos. Rizzo, all the solos on the album are Rizzo. But finding a singer was a pain in the ass.
I was going to say the next thing as well, because obviously you had Jarrett from the first lot of stuff, right? Is that right? Did he do like from many years ago? And then how did you find, old English boy Chris, who was from Mutiny Within? How did you get him involved?
So Jarrett was a friend of mine from Chicago also. He played in a band called Cast Aside. That was like a local metal band, and they had something special. I first heard them. He asked me to play drums for them, which I did for a little bit. I first heard them in maybe 2007 or 8, and they were just like a Pantera almost, very melodic, very heavy, groovy, and thrashy. But Jarrett had this special sort of grit to his voice, and he was a powerhouse singer. But eventually, Jarrett started having, I guess, things pop up in his life that were drawing him away from Chicago.
Right.
That's a respectful way to say he moved away.
Right. Yeah.
And it was unfortunate, because he's the kind of person that you got to have in the room with you to tell him, this is how you want things phrased, or, this is where the pitch should be, not here, But I was on the hunt for a singer, basically. And we were probably more than halfway through recording the album, and I didn't have a singer. We found another local prospect who ended up kind of washing out. It sucked because he was great. And then we found this guy who was really awesome, came in to track the album. We spent a week together tracking all the vocals, and he wasn't that sound. Like, he didn't have the sound that I was hearing, which was just crushing, because we did all this work. So Chris, luckily, the producer who I recorded the album with here in Chicago, his name is Vince. He's a killer everything. Every kind of, he plays drums, guitar. He's a producer. That just editing skills. It's just, the guy's amazing. He sat me down and, he saw I was down about this and depressed, and we had timelines we're working with. And he's like, who do you see singing for this band? Who have you always wanted to sing for it? And I'm like, well, Corey Taylor's not an option. So there's this other guy who I think is better than everyone. His name's Chris Clancy. And he was in this band Mutiny Within for a long time.
Yeah.
Chris, the thing about Chris is, like, that Mutiny Within stuff is quite heavy. But if you look at his YouTube channel, he does Queen covers and all this, Whitney Houston and stuff. Yeah. And the guy just has it. He's got this ability to scream, but then he can sing like nobody's business, man. Yeah. He's incredible.
Yeah.
So we sent him an email and he responded in 10 minutes and he's like, yeah, I remember you. Let's, send me a song and I'll see if I like it. Because you have to like it,
Yeah.
And he loved it. The first song I sent was our first single, Dark Heart Phenomena. And he schooled it, awesome. In one day he laid down the track and it was just like, thank you.
So everything was recorded remotely, obviously, from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bass was recorded remotely in LA by Tony. And then all the vocals were done remotely. He would send me ideas. I had melodies and structures and stuff that I sent him. And then he would go and make them way better. And I'm like, yeah, this is it. No.
Have you, all of you, been in the same room together at any point?
Yeah, we were together last year to film music videos.
Right, okay.
Which I sent you 2 music videos.
Yeah. So what was it like? Was that the first time you met Chris, or?
First time we've met in person, yeah. I mean, like I said, we talked years ago about him actually doing this with me.
Yeah.
And he was just too busy at the time. He lived in New Jersey. I think it was New Jersey, North Jersey, right up by where Mark lives.
Right.
And he was in Mutiny Within.
Right.
And at that time when we started talking, I was also in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So it would have been great, but I'm glad it worked out the way it did now,
Of course. So
everything happens for a reason.
So with the album, now you said to me in a message, you said that this album's got some deep shit going on. So talk to me about the themes of the album. Talk to me about the vibe of Dark Side of the Moon, the way it's meant to flow and everything, give us that.
So, record stores really don't exist anymore, especially the big chains, the places that I used to go when I was a kid. Yeah. And I'd wait at midnight on a midnight Tuesday was the release day for everything new. Yeah. And you don't have that anymore. And you used to be able to listen to an album beginning to end, and there would be some sort of like emotional experience, a message. Well, long story short, fast forward to now, that is obviously still that whole like Dark Side of the Moon listening experience is still a big part of my life. Yeah. I don't want to listen to an album where it's just a bunch of songs thrown on it and, it doesn't mean anything other than that.
Yeah.
So I guess I kind of created this whole idea of this emotional journey through life to death kind of theme.
Are we concept, you saying?
It's not really a concept. It's just sort of like a blueprint to my understanding of how life works.
Interpretation. Yeah.
And I did that with the first album, that was all about life and love and the happiness and the beauty of life. But then there was that element of hate hidden in there as well.
Sure.
Because hate is all around us.
Yeah.
With this album, it's kind of the same thing, but it's about death, and I know that sounds very open-ended and is very cliche, but this is my sonic interpretation of how death is so final, and it is 100% for everyone on the table. That's the only thing you can count on in life is death.
Yeah, of course.
And during the process of creating this album, when I was still working on the demos, one of my closest friends, this guy Todd, who is another railroader, he died from COVID totally unexpectedly. And, he was only 50 years old, and it was losing him was so crushing to me because he was a great guy. He was never a piece of shit to anybody. He never hurt anybody. And it's like just stupid, such a stupid reason to die.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of drum tracking, completely unexpected, I lost my father.
Mm.
And I had just seen him 2 weeks before that, and losing a parent is completely different than
Oh, I
losing a
know.
neighbor.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, sure. I know. I know.
It's an awakening,
Mm. Mm.
and
Mm.
it really makes you think about life and how this clock just seems to tick faster and faster every day.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely.
So I hadn't written the lyrics yet by when I lost my father, and I started to channel all of that sorrow and the grief and everything into my lyrical sort of approach for this album. And
Was
by
it
the end of it,
was it therapeutic for that? Was it
oh
cathartic?
man, so therapeutic. And everybody grieves differently,
Sure.
you know. And of course, I had like the depressive sort of bits going on, and the reality of being an adult, and having to bury my father and all this stuff. But being able to craft something that was my own, not playing drums on somebody else's songs, but really
Yeah.
being able to say, okay, I'm going to change this artwork this
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
and I'm going to write these kind of lyrics and all that stuff. That whole process was just so completing for me during that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Wow. So you just touched upon it then with the artwork as well and the art and everything. Is this like very much a Dave Kinkade DIY band? You do everything yourself pretty much. You're pretty heavy with regards to the direction. You write. I think you looked after the artwork. So this is 100% your project, right?
it's 100% my project, but I want everybody to feel like they have their own say.
Would you want to bring that kind of? I mean, has everyone got that? What you said at the start of the interview, you wanted to have that family vibe. I mean, you've been in so many bands and so many different
Yeah.
units. You probably haven't had that solidified. Rammstein have never changed a member. Metallica only changed a member. Unfortunately with Cliff and obviously with
Yeah.
Jason, but it's still a family unit. It still feels like that. How close are you getting that feeling with the Monarch? For finally,
The thing is, there were a lot of guys around the first album's lineup, and I'm the only one that's still, in that. And it's not like we hate each other. I mean, I don't speak to one of them, but it's not really the reason I stepped it up with this kind of lineup is because I would like to tour it.
yeah,
Being able to tour this kind of band would be great.
yeah, yeah,
But these are also guys that they know what they have miles on them.
yeah,
They know what it takes to make an album sound really good in a quick, you know,
yeah.
in a quick kind of period of time and do it long distance and all that. I mean,
Mm,
Rizzo flew in here for 2 days and he did solos for 11 songs,
right.
and these are like,
Yeah,
I'm sure he
yeah, no.
listened to the songs once
Yeah,
and he's like, okay, I got it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, this new album is, and I've been listening to you guys for the last few days now. I listened to the album when you sent me the new one. It is very well produced. It's a brilliant album. It's very good,
Thank you.
very,
Yeah.
very good.
It's
So
money well spent. Chris
yeah,
Collier is the mixing and mastering genius
yeah,
guru
yeah, yeah.
behind that sound.
So obviously, the bands that you've been in and the guys as well, you've got some battle scars between you. Does that spur you on a little bit more to succeed with your own project?
Oh, 100%. Battle scars are what make you, and
Mm,
it's a weird world that we live in because now you can have like drummers that never leave their house
yeah,
that have millions and millions of views and they're called influencers, and they get these endorsements and stuff. And it's like, that's great. But have you like lived in a bus with no food for 7 weeks and had to like take cold showers in Poland in January,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then play a show? I
Absolutely.
mean,
That's where you earn your stripes, isn't it?
yeah, you earn your stripes, and the guys in my band have done a hell of a lot more than I have even,
Well,
and I've done a lot.
I was going to say, so okay, this is a quick question, and then we're going to go into the touring element. What do you prefer, studio or stage?
Oh man, 50-50 of both.
Okay, fair
I
enough.
think the stage is sort of a complete different world of its own because
Absolutely.
when you get those like perfect nights where the
Yeah, yeah,
sound's great
yeah.
and the gear feels amazing.
Yeah, I've
And
been
you
there.
play
I know
every
that
note
feeling.
and
I
it's
know that feeling.
effortless,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
I know.
But then the studio, there's moments where I'm sitting there and I will hear something that completely changes the song, and we go and try it, and it's just like, wow, you get
Yeah.
those chills,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Goosebumps.
the hair
Yeah,
on your
absolutely.
arm. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, then. So you talked about you want to get this on the road. I mean, how complicated is that going to be with everyone else's commitments? Do you think you'll get the current lineup on the road together, or do you think you're going to have to kind of like bastardize the guys?
I think with Tony being, Tony he is Static X at this point.
Yeah, I
And
totally agree.
Static X is doing phenomenal right
Yeah,
now. They're
incredible.
playing big venues all over the world, and
Yeah,
they're kicking ass. I
yeah,
would never say, Tony,
yeah,
you have to come and play with my unsigned band
yeah. Of
these days.
course.
I mean, just doesn't make
No,
sense.
of
And
course.
he's also got Fear Factory. Um, I noticed that they have to get some session based players every now and then
Yeah.
when Tony has the conflicting dates. But realistically, I think everyone else is 110% on board with making something live happen with this.
What's happening with Mark with El Nino? I see. Obviously he was he was in Soulfly for 18 years and left them after COVID, and then all of a sudden he's back in El Nino. I mean, what's their commitments at the moment?
We don't really talk El Nino a lot. I know that they do stuff. I mean, they tour. They've got a whole. I think they just announced a European tour
Right.
a few days ago.
Okay. Does that frustrate you when you see your other guys that you're in the band with? I mean, I can imagine that myself. If I'm like there wanting to go out and play, and everyone else is going out and playing, is a little bit of jealousy creeps in on that. Like, oh, I want to be doing that.
No, I mean, they've done it for so long that I think it's just kind of push the play button and go.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
I don't think, because Mark has other bands too. He has a death metal side project that he does that is his thing.
Yeah.
And they play shows and all that. I think the only kind of jealousy that I really have is the fact that I didn't do it earlier.
Right. Okay.
Because we still haven't played anything of this live. And I was known for so long as being like a live drummer, and it sucks because I know that this would sound so good live.
Yeah.
I'm so
Absolutely.
anal about things sounding and being perfect that
absolutely. So is it a conscious effort? You're striving to get this out on the road?
Yeah, definitely. We I wanted to get this album out 6 months ago, but then some things that happened.
Yeah.
But I think once this album comes out, because it's not really like one thing. Like I'm a big prog fan, but I love classical too. Like I love piano concertos.
Yeah.
I love just stuff that is progressive and evil.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Rush. Rush is very progressive, but then I love Slayer because of Dave Lombardo.
Yeah, of course.
And when you listen to my stuff, it has little bits and pieces of all that in there. There's even classical in there.
Yeah.
I think being able to go and do this correctly live would be awesome. And if we have Tony with us, then great.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna be upset if Tony can't do it because
you can't not take it on the road if everyone else is ready to go and there's one member. You've got to get it going. I hope that, and I really hope that happens for you. I really do. So obviously, you've done between you all, you've done thousands of shows. You must have done a few hundred yourself.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of a funny story or an experience or something from touring.
Oh man.
Just something, it doesn't have to be anything. It doesn't have to be funny, it could be a serious story, whatever.
I mean, there's all kinds, dude. There's one that pops in the, when we were on tour with Malevolent Creation many years ago, that was a very alcohol fueled tour.
Right.
It was bad.
Yeah.
And I was young, man. I was like 21 or 22, and I was just playing a million miles an hour, and there was no stop button involved. We were touring with Bolt Thrower, Necrophagist, Night Rage.
Wow.
And Malevolent Creation.
Yeah.
And it was nonstop partying. And I remember there were nights where I'm up there getting sick, like throwing up on myself playing drums, and I don't even drink now. I mean, I'm 40.
I mean, what's the situation with? Because I mean, I know that when I used to play, and I don't really play anymore, but I used to have like a maximum of 2 pint rule before, 2 drink rule before a show, and that'll be it. Do you
Oh, yeah.
was that tour more? Did you play hallucinated?
Well, I think I was still learning. So there were times where I was like,
Yeah,
before the
yeah,
show.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then I'm like playing the show. I'm like, what song are we playing,
Yeah.
dude?
You've already played
Then
it.
I learned not to do that before the show, obviously.
Yeah,
Can you hear my dogs?
I can. It's wonderful. I'm here for the dogs. Don't worry. Carry on.
Sorry, the dogs are conveniently being
That's
assholes.
good. They want to be involved. Carry on.
Then there were times where I tried the having a drink or 10 before the show just to kind of calm the nerves.
Yeah,
And that was obviously a really bad move.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But in my later years, it was always kind of, I'd have a cigarette or two, and then after the show, I'd have a drink or two.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And in Soulfly, I wasn't even really drinking.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Right. Good. Is that because you probably saw that as like super professional because you had the respect for Max, or?
Yeah, by that time, I have a really bad lower back.
Right.
I have 4 herniated discs, and
Right.
I gained a whole lot of weight. I had surgery in 2016, and I gained 100 pounds easily, which I've now lost. I lost 115 pounds in the last year. But during that time, I was on a lot of medication for my back, just to get through the shows, and my feet were numb. I'm playing double bass with numb feet.
Yeah.
And I think just focusing on putting out a quality presentation was all I really cared about at that point, and obviously you're playing with Max. You want to play the songs right.
Yeah.
You want to play them
with
conviction.
Of course you do. What kit you got? Just is nerding out now.
Now it's a Pearl Masterworks that I designed with them. It's
nice.
A special finish called Black Sparkle Burst to Granite Sparkle.
Wow.
And Sabian cymbals, Axis pedals,
cool.
Evans drum heads, and Vader drumsticks.
Sounds good. Sounds like my perfect setup. That. So
sorry, I had a little brain fart.
Talking about all your gigs and that, and obviously you said you'd lived in Norway and you lived in the Netherlands and you've done a lot of traveling. Obviously, what country do you miss playing live to? What was your favorite country to see? If you were looking down a set, you tour and you're looking at, shit, I can't wait to go there because that is a real cool place.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, I know, but what would be like the one to go? I can't wait to play there.
Obviously, Germany is probably at the top of that list.
Yeah,
but then anywhere in Asia, Malaysia, especially.
Yeah,
Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, amazing.
What's your festival checklist like?
I've played them all. That was the thing. When I was a kid, I saw the AC/DC Live at Donington VHS, and I said, I want to do that.
And you played Download.
And then eventually I got to play Donington, and it's like, check. What's the next one? Sonosphere. Check.
Yeah.
Wacken.
Yeah.
Check.
What about Hellfest? Have you done that since that started? Hellfest.
Which one?
Hellfest.
Oh, Hellfest. That's in France, right?
Yeah, it's in Nantes. It's a cracker. It's brilliant. Absolutely
amazing.
I think
we may have played one. I mean, I've played a lot of them.
I know. Of course you have.
When we were in Soulfly, we played them all.
Sure. Do you? What's the situation? I had Max on the show a couple of years ago, and I had a really good chat with Max. Great guy. Do you still see that in him, or do you not really? Do you see a different side of him?
To be honest, I haven't spoken to Max since 2012.
Right. Okay. So that's a chunk.
Since basically the last show in Bangkok, Thailand, we flew home and everybody just kind of
disappeared. Wow. Okay.
All right. I haven't had a word with him.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously, you've been in the industry for many years. I think we can feel that from this chat. In your eyes, what pisses you off about the industry, and how has that evolved since you first picked sticks up to where you are now? How do you feel?
Well, it's like I said, CD stores don't exist anymore.
Well, yeah.
And that is very unfortunate because I miss being able to get the CD and open it and have that smell of the ink.
I know. Yeah.
And to, break your fingernail on trying to open cellophane and all that.
Yeah. I know.
I just miss that experience. And I don't do Spotify. I will do Apple Music because the quality is a little bit better.
Oh, you've been a specialist now.
Well, here's the thing. So I was never into this streaming stuff, but when I discovered that you could add, you could have an artist library.
Right. Yeah.
It was almost like a replacement to the CD shelf.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
I appreciate that, but I think streaming has really killed this heavy metal thing that I loved as a kid. You don't see it anymore.
No,
you can't. I used to go to shows, like I remember seeing Opeth's first tour of the United States, and it was just these skinny, tall Swedish guys with a black backdrop playing this incredible sort of progressive Swedish sound, and I was like, "This is amazing."
Yeah.
But there weren't very many people there, and now it's just like everything is commercialized.
I think everything has to be commercialized because the only way people are making money is through shows, so they're having to make it that little bit better.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, bands like that, I understand them becoming bigger and bigger, and the presentation gets bigger, but you don't see bands start, I guess, building their fan base based off of touring anymore.
Sure. Yeah.
Like Lacuna Coil used to open for them. I think they did 2 or 3 tours with Opeth right when they started. And nobody knew who Lacuna Coil was over here. Now they're huge. They've been around for 25 plus years.
Yeah.
But I discovered bands like that because they would come through with bands like Opeth.
Yeah,
and they were touring, and it's like, okay, I'm going to buy all their stuff.
Do you think it's cheapened the product and given so many people the chance to release music that it's kind of like it's saturated and diluted the market? Because as you say, you would back in the day, and we're not far off this. We're very similar ages. You used to learn about new bands by seeing them as support acts, and you just said that.
Yeah.
But now you can just go, what's bands are like that, and then you just go down a rabbit hole.
There are a lot of. It is very oversaturated, but there are also a lot of guys playing stuff that I could never play. Like if there's extreme drum Facebook groups that I'm a part of, and guys will post videos and they're playing 310 BPMs.
I have no idea. Just no idea.
Like, and they're just sitting there going.
I know, effortless. Effortless. It's a sport.
We didn't have that 20 years ago.
No, I know. I mean, what do you think? I mean, obviously you're playing fast, right? When you play a gig, and you haven't played many for a while, but they say that like a 45-minute show is the equivalent of a soccer playing at least peak elite for 90 minutes. And I used to come off stage and my jeans would be sweating. So
head to toe, I was soaked, and I got really good at preventing, like losing sticks and stuff because I'd wear, the sweat wraps and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
I think from those days of like Pantera, you look at the old Pantera days. When you could go to a show and just get the shit beaten out of you.
Yeah.
And you'd leave and your ears would ring for 4 days. Slayer shows and stuff. I do miss that. But
I can smell it now. I can smell those rooms.
Oh, yeah. And losing your shoes and, you're losing your car keys and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That was when it was more real to me. And I know that people now would be like, oh, you're a boomer. But it's like, I guess I just, I don't know. I miss the old days, I miss when it felt more real. Now half of these bands that are becoming something, you can't even see them live. They've hardly toured or.
What's your opinion on Slayer now?
Getting back together?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I kind of wish that they had never stopped when they did.
Of course, it was wrong. That's Tom for you.
But
Kerry King must be like, hold on, I've just decided to do my own thing. I've got an album coming out. I'm doing some shows, and now you want to get the band, and now you want to get the band back together. Come on,
it's weird timing. Tony is real close, I guess, with Kerry King, or at least he knows him a lot better than I do.
Yeah.
I love Slayer though.
Yeah, of course.
Mark really loves Slayer.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I wish was different was that Dave Lombardo had sort of a better exit.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree.
I saw Lombardo play with Testament.
I did. And I met David. I met him as well. I met him after the show. Yeah, I met him in Barcelona. Amazing to see that. And they really, Chuck Billy and the band have really kind of got behind him and made him like a feature, Whereas Testament had a revolving door
But
maybe
for
maybe
Dave
you should join
Slayer,
Testament, mate. They seem to be always getting new drummers.
yeah, for Dave with Slayer though, we played Sofia, Bulgaria when we were in Soulfly, and Slayer was the headliner that night, and I stood behind Dave and watched him play
Nice.
the most incredible show I've ever seen.
Wow.
And Mark, Tony, and I were standing up there, and the stage is rumbling. And
Yeah.
I'm like, this isn't enough for me. I had to go right out to the front and stand right in the front and
Oh
just
God.
have
Yeah.
my hearing assassinated. But
The,
it was a good.
the only good thing about it all, I think, is like my kids are growing up, and my youngest, who's 16 soon, he's massive into metal. He never got the opportunity to see Pantera or Slayer, and I'm hoping that this might give them the opportunity to get a taste of that. I know it's not going to be in its full form as we talked about, but that could be something, and that's the only good thing I see from it.
Pantera is kind of a sad subject, I
Yeah.
think.
Okay.
Without bashing what they're doing now, because the internet has loved to rip that whole thing apart.
Yeah.
All I could say is that I really wish the word tribute was under the Pantera logo. That's all.
I get that. I get that.
Because
yeah, I get that.
when you look at, like, I'm sure you've watched the vulgar videos and the home videos and that stuff, when you look at what that band was, it really was the brothers.
Yes, of course. Absolutely. Of course it was. And apparently Zach Wilde's joined the band full time now. So they're going to be recording new stuff, I think, the next.
And I love Zach
months.
Wilde, I love Zach Wilde. I have nothing bad to say about any of them, but it's just like, it really hurts to still think that Dimebag Darrell, such a great, phenomenal, one-of-a-kind guitar player, was taken out by some asshole that walked on stage and killed
honestly,
him.
don't get me started. To the point where I know. Okay, I know, Matt, I know. But okay. One question I'm going to ask you, and I always ask this to drummers: how often do you practice? Because us drummers have it hard when it comes to practice. It's not easy to sit there for 2 or 3 hours doodling like guitarists can. How often do you play? You say you pick the guitar up. Do you pick the guitar up as many times as you pick the sticks up to try and get the songs going, or do you pick sticks up to keep going?
Guitar doesn't really. I don't really play guitar until I'm writing.
Right. Okay.
Because I'm not a good guitar player anyway, and
it's because you're humming.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a way better hummer than guitar player. But you know what? I don't practice drums as much as I need to or should. Yeah. But I do practice a lot. It's probably 3 times a week now. I need to do it every day.
And how often? So how long do you go for?
About an hour.
Yeah. Okay.
I go through the motions
sweating
of. Yeah, I kind of just bring myself to that point of sweat, and then something stupid like the phone will ring, or I'll look at the time. I have to go to work. But it's I used to play for about 6 hours every day when I was younger.
Wow.
Every single day, and my fingers would get holes in them.
Yeah.
And then I'd do it again the next day. Of course. You super glue them back shut and just keep going.
Okay, another nerd question: what's stick size?
I have a custom size. They're the Vader DSK.
What are they similar to? 5B, 2B? What are they?
No, they're 17 inches long. They're 17. Actually, I have one if you want to see it.
Yeah, go get it. Wow. Yeah.
They put my shit on there for me.
Nice.
Big nylon tip.
Nylon tips.
These were designed by Dave Silveria.
Right, okay.
Former Korn drummer.
Yeah. Nice.
They're like 0.595 in the diameter, so they're like a 5B, but they're 17 inches long.
Wow.
Little extra reach.
A bit longer. Okay, so what do you like to do away from the music? Also we discussed that. What do you do to chill out, or do you find that drums chills you out? Or how do you just switch off? Obviously, you got a family.
I need to take breaks.
Yeah.
I really need to take breaks, especially when I get stressed out. There's been times where I haven't listened to my stuff for months.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'll just go to classical, and classical will do its thing.
Right.
I always have music in my life, and 90% of the time it's classical. But completely away from music, I'm actually a beginner pilot.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I've been luckily enough, I've been flying since I was a little kid, because of parents that are in the airline industry. So I was everywhere around the world before I even started doing this.
Wow.
I love aviation, and I love, I love being that freedom of being able to to fly, and
Amazing.
the whole mathematical sort of scientific element that comes along with drag and lift and weight and
Yeah.
inertia and all that stuff.
Amazing.
So I'm going for my pilot's license.
Amazing. How far off? How many hours have you got?
Like 2.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay.
Like 2.
Yeah. Okay.
And I only need about 40 more to get my PPL.
I see. Nice. Okay, back to metal and back to rock. Who would be like influence wise? I won't go into your influences. I think it's pretty obvious, but who would be on your own personal Mount Rushmore of rock and metal? 4. Is it not a band? There's going to be a band set up. Could be 4 vocalists, 4 drummers, whatever. 4 guys or 4 women, whatever you want on your Mount Rushmore. That's forged your career, forged your mentality towards this genre that we know and love. Who is it?
Devin Townsend.
Okay. Why?
Because Devin is just, my friend Michelle put it beautifully one time. She's like, I just want to lick Devin's brain.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, he is such.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
he's such a human being.
Yeah.
It's the best way I can put it.
Yeah, I like it. No, I get that. I've never heard that analogy before, but I like it.
Yeah, Devin Townsend.
So he's been chipped in now. So who've got 3 more?
Yeah. So let's see. Can it be Neil Peart?
Of course it can. Yeah.
Yeah. Neil Peart. Neil Peart, because he's also an incredible mind, or was an incredible mind.
Yeah.
He loved to travel, but he loved to travel in his own way.
Right.
He hated airplanes, so he would travel the world by motorcycle
and
by bicycle.
Uh-huh.
And if you ever get the chance to visit Neil's books, I highly recommend you do so.
Okay.
There's audiobooks of everything now.
Cool.
Of all of his works. And it's just, once you get into the life of Neil Peart, man, there's no looking back.
Okay, cool. Nice. The third one?
Lars Ulrich.
Okay.
Because Lars did everything right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He turned this vision of his into this metropolis that is Metallica.
Yeah, I agree.
And then I don't even know who I would pick for the last one. Probably David Gilmour.
Right. Okay. Any reason? Just obviously.
David Gilmour, just because the way that he. Obviously, I'm a drummer, but I love guitar. And I think guitar creates sort of the aura of sound.
Yeah.
And there's so many incredible things that can be done on such a simple instrument.
Yeah.
I think David Gilmour does that the best.
Nice. I agree. British as well. So what's the message to the fans? Why do you think people should be tuning in to listening to the Monarch? What's your opinion of that?
Well, first we have to have fans. So we're trying to, I guess, turn people onto.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I'll rephrase. Yeah. Why should people listen to the Monarch?
Because I think it's something just a little bit different. I'm not trying to go and reinvent the wheel. You listen to it and you can hear all of, the inspiration of the bands that kind of raised me. Yeah. But you're not getting a political pile of shit either. There's I'm very anti-politics. I'm very anti-religion when it comes to music.
Yeah.
I think music needs to be an emotional outlet.
Yeah.
I want to listen to something when I feel lower than low.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be able to have a transformation take place during that sonic journey.
Yeah, I get it.
And come out the other side feeling like there is some sort of hope.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing with all music. You need to be able to relate to what that guy's trying to tell you.
Yeah, I get that. Now, just obviously off the record, and I want to ask you this question as American. You've got a big year politically coming up. You say you don't want to do politics, but what's the vibe like in the States at the moment with what's going to happen in November?
It's strange, dude.
A lot of division.
There's been a lot of division for a long time. The thing is, you have one side of people that think one thing and another side that think something else. And it's always been like that, that people have always hated what the other guy wants as a president. I mean, that's never been, it's been like that since I was a kid. The problem is I don't want to sound like some old guy saying, "Oh, video games created that." It's nothing like that at all. But there is really no understanding of when something is too much, and
Right.
society has fallen apart in a way to where violence is now accepted.
Mm.
People will kill people for no reason now. And it's like, it's an everyday thing. It
Mm.
used to be like every so often you'd hear
Yeah, you
somebody
hear
got
about it.
shot
Yeah.
to steal their wallet or their shoes or something. Now it's an everyday thing, and
Mm.
it's moved everywhere,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think what the media has done is created this division, Media is very good at
Of course it
trying
is.
to sway you from one
Yeah,
side
yeah.
to another,
Of
tell you
course.
what to be afraid of.
Of course. Of
So
course.
I watch the news, but I watch it for the weather, and that's it, man.
Well, let's leave
So,
that there. What one track from the new album should I play and why next?
um, well, we have two singles that we released.
Yeah.
Dark Heart Phenomena was the first one.
Yeah.
When Death Finds You was the second one, which, as far as a new song is concerned, probably Man-Made Chaos. It's the album
Yeah.
opener. It's thrashy, it's fast, and it
And,
has
and,
all the.
and I played that on the show last week.
Oh, you played it last
Yeah,
week.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I played
Yep,
it.
that's probably the one that we'll stick with then, because I'm
And
not
I'm
releasing
going to
anything
play
else.
that as well. So, well, listen, Dave, thanks so much for joining me. Good luck with the Monarch. I really feel your passion, and it's been a fascinating and honest chat with you. So, good luck with that, mate. And I hope to see you. Maybe we can get you on the road.
Awesome. Thank you. It was a pleasure. And yes, hopefully we'll meet on the road soon.